Seanad or McCarthy.
Thank you, Minister, for being here. In 2016, I was asked to speak in the joint houses of the Oireachtas. I think it was the Housing and Homelessness Committee back then. And I was asked, it was long before I knew what a senator was and long before I became one. But I tried to make a difference in the area of marginalisation and homelessness. So I helped set up an organisation called Tiglin. So we were asked to appear before the Housing Committee, and we spoke to the Minister. He was Simon Coveney at the time. And Simon gave an undertaking that homelessness would be eradicated by 2020. And homelessness at the time, emergency accommodation numbers were around 6,000. So now I'm here 10 years later. And it's not to criticise anybody, but it's just to say we're nearly 3 times that level in emergency accommodation. We've over 17,000 now, and over 5,500 of those are children. When I entered into this house last March, there was 15,286, and I wrote it on my whiteboard in emergency accommodation. I thought, let's see that number coming down. And now I get the numbers. I see Alva Keneally from RTE. She puts them up, and I just go, oh no. This is becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy of negativity, and we're losing a generation. And the numbers are nearly losing their meaning. So we have to be careful of that. But behind the numbers are children that are growing up in hotel rooms, doing their homework in bathrooms, having no kitchen. And I just think it's not just homelessness here. I think you're losing out with a whole lot of childhood's being compromised, and as I said, you have a potential of stunting growth before it even begins. Recently at the Lighthouse, I do usually the Thursday evening. That's our homeless cafe on Pier Street. But a family came in, and they're living on Gardiner Street, and they're in a family hub, and they had a house, a social house, but the father had a complex needs, and he fell behind on the rent. And the rent then arrears, there was something like 14,000, which can't be allowed either. So they were made homeless. So the father, the mother, and the 2 children. The young guy came in with his mother, and they were looking for food. And I got talking to him, and he wanted to be a basketball player. And he plays basketball in Talon. That's his dream. But unfortunately now he's living in the hub in Gardiner Street. But he is commuting to play basketball. But I'm just thinking, surely to goodness, there's a better way. There's a better solution here. So I've met with these families. I've sat with them. And I've seen children that are trying to grow up like that. I think we're failing them today. And I certainly do feel that we're shaping their future for tomorrow. As I mentioned at Tiglin, and I was there at lunchtime today, the reality we encounter on the front line are people that actually, some people are working, but they can't afford to pay rent and eat, so therefore they're taking advantage of the food circumstances. And then we also have the residential supported housing, which is vital for people with a dual diagnosis, mental health, addiction, etc. But I will say the report today by Alva Keneally in the RTE highlights the number of deaths amongst homeless people. In 2022, 124 people died. It's slightly down from 2021, which was 133. But these are people that have died on the streets, died alone, and I also think it shows that too many people are falling through the cracks here. Particularly those, as I've mentioned before, by dual diagnosis, whereby it's a housing issue, it's a health issue, it's an addiction issue, but none of those services are joined up together, and I think they have to be. So Alva Keneally's report shows the figures. We have to reflect and say, what's going wrong here? Everybody should have the opportunity to access recovery, access stability, access housing, and be supported. I've also seen the good side at the Lighthouse, where we feed up to 500 people a day. A couple of weeks ago, I was at the Éireann Hotel across the road, and I was there for a wedding. I can't afford lunch in the Éireann Hotel, never mind a wedding. But it was of a guy, and I'd met him. He was homeless, living in Stephen's Green. And this guy came to us as a service user, and he'd no education, so we got him into college. He started to do a degree. He did a master's degree, then another master's degree. And he managed to do very well. And then he got married in the Éireann Hotel a couple of weeks ago. And I just thought, when the opportunity is given, that bed then that's offered becomes stability. Stability then becomes education, and then education leads to employment, and employment then offers dignity. And that chap is in here tomorrow, and his story is well known, so I'm not divulging secrets, but he's here in the AV room tomorrow as CEO of a national organisation, and he's given a presentation. So it's at 10:30 in the morning, if you're able to get around. I've said it to you already, Pauline. But so I suppose a lot of people that use the services of the likes of Tig Lynn, they're hearing that Ireland is one of the wealthiest countries in Europe, and they're hearing that we have a strong economy. But when you're in emergency accommodation, when you're in the family hub on Gardiner Street, you don't feel it, and you feel totally different than everybody else that's been mentioned in this strong economy. So it's essential that we bridge that gap, and that what people are actually experiencing, that we need to acknowledge that and deal with it. And I think through supported housing opportunities, and that's what I put through to the committee in 2016. And if you look at the Simon Communities report then that also released yesterday, it was all about how single people, single adults, mainly males, are falling through the cracks. It's impossible to get accommodation. Apartments aren't being built one bedroom. And a lot of these people that are on the Simon Communities report, they didn't come into the system the way we might think. They came through broken marriages, they came through failed job opportunities, etc. And it amounts to over 3,000 in a year, according to that report. And I think a lot of those people then are in accommodation for over a year, and yet it's emergency accommodation. So an emergency should be very short term, so that's not emergency, that's a long term. They're stuck there. And HAP is not working for many. Yesterday I got an email from a guy, and he's entitled to HAP, but in the area, the HAP amount he's been given, he can't get anywhere, it's impossible. So he's actually in a hostel, so he's stuck in limbo as well. So I suppose it's a very complex situation, and from my situation dealing with people going into rehab, we get people off the streets that have addiction issues, get them into rehab, try to get them sober, and then, Minister, what happens is, where do you send them? You can't send them back to the very place they got sick in the first place. So you try to do supported housing. So then the supported housing, which we have, is temporary. It's a year. But now that's clogged up because we've nowhere to send them afterwards. So when I see the 17,000 people in a country of our size with the resources that we have, I think this is a problem that shouldn't be too hard to solve. We took in over 120,000 Ukrainians, and we did it with the click of a finger because we all got together with joint-up thinking. So that same coordination is what's needed today. So what do we need to do? We need more social housing, you know. We also need more one-bed homes, and I'm involved in the Bluebell Community Council. We're doing one-bed housing over there. But we also need services that work together, such as mental health, addiction, and homeless supports. And I think then if we properly act and get that together, I think we'll look back in years to come and we'll say Minister James Brown was one of the most successful housing ministers ever. We don't want to lose a generation, and I think that's what we're doing. And I certainly don't want to be here in 10 years' time, Minister, listening to the increasing homeless numbers. And I think not only do we need to give these people a roof, but we need to give them a real chance, such as Jay Bobanak in the Marion Hotel a couple of weeks ago. Thank you, Minister, and thank you, Cahirlock.